Now, this is the last speech of this session. And now, from Kars Provincial Mufti, Aysel Sahin will be speaking.
Floor is yours, madam. Thank you very much. Esteemed Chair, esteemed participants, our audience who is following us on the online platform, I respectfully welcome you all. I'm the last speaker. Maybe it will be hard to listen to me for you, but I am trying to be time efficient. So I will talk about Hajj duty during Ottoman Empire because our speakers before me already mentioned this subject at length, and specifically I will focus on Hajj routes, the performance of Hajj, guidance services during Hajj, and settlement and healthcare services in Mecca and Medina. So the routes, since ancient times, they are being done through the land routes, and in order to reach Hijaz, people have been making great effort since the history, and a lot of routes has been followed. And during Ottoman Empire, mainly land roads, sea roads were used afterwards, and then the railroads were used. So there are 7 land routes: Damascus, Egypt, Baghdad, Basra, Lhasa, and Aden and Umman. The Damascus being the gathering place of pilgrims from Anatolia, Balkan, Crimea, Caucasia, and Syria, and Baghdad being the gathering center of pilgrims from Central Asia, Iran, Afghanistan, North India, and Jeddah being the gathering place of the Muslims from North Africa, and Cairo being the another gathering place. And this group of pilgrims, when they set off from Istanbul, they would stop at these locations mentioned before. Sure Humayun is abolished in Istanbul at 10th of Recep, month Recep, and it would take 8 to 9 months to reach Mecca. The routes would start from Üsküdar, then would be followed by Gebze, Eskişehir, Konya, Adana, Antakya, and then there would be Aleppo and Damascus. Pilgrims coming from Anatolia would accommodate in Damascus, and other groups would come together with them, and they would pass to Mecca together. And it would take them 40 to 50 days to pass from Damascus to Mecca and Medina. Until the sea travel became popular, land routes would be almost always the same ones, and Mecca Emir defines which routes the groups would take. And the routes taken by the groups would be kept secret due to the security reasons. State would pay great attention to the needs of the pilgrims for their voyage, for their journey. There are many assignments for the Ottoman Empire for the Hajj journey. Officials, good news bearers, guardians, and other state officials would be assigned to make sure that nothing went wrong during the journey. And in order to provide the safety of the pilgrims, the state officials would also notify the local authorities during the routes of the pilgrims for suspicious regions in terms of security. Specific and more strict measures would be taken to provide the safety of the pilgrims. Local administrators, the moment the group enters to their jurisdiction, they would be responsible from the safety of the pilgrims. The group of pilgrims would take horses, mules until Damascus,
Hacılar burada ihtiyaçlarını
Pilgrims in their
karşılarlardı.
accommodation places would cover
Kervanların
their
Avrupa'ya
certain
gelen
needs,
askeri birliği
and
idare
the military
teşkilatlarından
unit
kafileye buradan katılırdı.
would
Kafile
join the
kurbanlık
group
boşaltlarını
in
bulmak
this
için sıkı
place,
bir muhafaza altında Mekke'ye doğru ilerler.
and the
El
group would
Muda'ya
be
kadar gelir ve burada bizzat
guarded by
Mekke'nin
the
veya
soldiers and
komutanın
guardians,
temsilcisi
and they would
tarafından
advance
karşılanırdı.
towards Mecca.
Buradan itibaren kafile
And they would
artık
be
Mekke'nin
welcomed
emiri
by the
himayesine
emir
girmiş
of
olurdu.
Mecca, and they would be
Şam'dan
under the
itibaren
jurisdiction
vasıta
of
olarak
Mecca emir once they enter to
develerin yanında
Mecca.
katırlar hatta merkepler
In
kullanılmıştı.
addition to
Haç
camels,
kervanlarında hacıların
mules,
ulaşımını sağlayan
and
veya
donkeys
yüklerini
would be
taşıyan
used,
akkam veya
and
mukavvim adı verilen
mukavim
kişiler vardı.
were the people
Haç
who would
yolculuğunda bu
carry
kişilerin
the
kiralık
belongings of the
hayvanlarıyla
pilgrims,
yapılmaktaydı.
and
Akkam veya
this would be the
mukavvimler
rental
genellikle
animals
Bedouin
usually.
kabilelerinden olurdu.
These
Ve
people would be
özellikle
from the Bedouin
mukavvimler
tribes
güvenlik ve
usually,
tedbiri bulunan
and
kişilerden
these would be
seçilirdi.
selected among
Haç
people who
kafilesinin
are
konaklama olup
trustworthy.
yapmamasına Emirül Haç karar
Emirul
verirdi.
Hajj would
Haç
decide whether the
kafilesinin
group would
nakilleri
accommodate in a
yapılan
certain place
yolculuklara
or
göre
not,
nerede kalacakları, nasıl olacakları, günah
based on the
araçları,
weather
makam üyeleri
conditions.
şartlara göre değişirdi.
The places
Bu
of
şekilde
stay of
haç
the group would
yolculuğunda
be
Şam'dan sonra diğer
decided.
ateşler yakılır ve ayrıca devletin güvenlik amacıyla
During
yapmış
winter
olduğu
time,
kalelerde konaklanılırdı.
fires would be
Hacı
set,
kafilesi belirli bir
and
düzen içerisinde
secure
yol
places
alınırdı.
would be
Hacı
chosen
kafilesinde
to accommodate
kafilenin yol
the
boyunca
pilgrims
hangi düzen
group.
içinde gidecekleri belirtilmiş ve her bir
The
yolun
order
belirli
of
işaret
accommodation, the routes will be
aldığı
pre-identified.
kafilenin ardından eğer kaybolmuş
If
hacılar
there are
varsa
any
kafileyi yetiştirmek için birkaç asker
pilgrims who
kafilenin arkasından giderdi.
by any chance goes missing, soldiers will be assigned to find them. Usually these accommodation places would be in big settlement places so that people can cover their food needs. And many good deed doers, people who love to do social aid, would also give food to the pilgrims on a voluntary basis during their journey. These dinners organized for pilgrims and seeing of the Hajjis, the pilgrims, is a long-lasting tradition in Ottoman Empire, and there would be helping caravans as well during the road. Kilara Hasta Hajj Sharif department was also established in order for the pilgrims not to have water problems in desert regions. These people would make sure that in the next location to go, there wouldn't be any water problem, so they would also carry water with them. Until they arrive from Damascus to Mecca, the water problem would be solved, and if there is no water, they would transfer water to these places. There used to be water wells established and ponds that are established for this purpose, and from local people, in exchange of fees and payments, water will be procured as well. For a normal citizen to go to Hajj, they wouldn't need to get any permission. But for women, even though there are very few women back then who go to Hajj, and people were warned not to create any problems for women who want to go to Hajj, and also state assigned specific people to facilitate their journey. These permission requests for the staff, they can also assign a surrogate, and they can go to perform their Hajj duties themselves as well. And we see this in the records as well. In case of a missing pilgrim, state also take responsibility in this respect in order to find the pilgrims. When a pilgrim dies during the journey, their funeral affairs would be arranged, and the news of passing away would be reached to their relatives and their families. In a pilgrimage journey, 5,000 people died of cholera, for example, and there are records of that. For pilgrims who are not subjects of Ottoman Empire, their belongings would be auctioned and turned into cash, and then transferred to the relevant embassies and consulate generals of that specific citizen. And sea travel then would become possible. Marmara Islands, Çanakkale Straits, Dedeağaç Port, roads, Cyprus and Beirut would be the roads, and Suez Channel, Yanbu and Jeddah were the ports that would allow people to arrive. In ships, all the needs of the people would be covered as well in terms of sanitation and hygiene. There were certain standards to be covered, and the tickets of the passengers would be checked.
Yine yolcu sayılarından sorumlu, gemi kapasitesinin,
The
yolcu sayılarından
ship capacity would be paid attention to. The number of passengers were counted as well. Overcapacitation was not allowed. Captains wouldn't be allowed to stop other than the pre-identified ports, for example. And the ships would be adapted to the certain weather conditions, and the captains would record the names of the pilgrims, and if there is any passenger who passes away, the records were also kept. In these ships, necessary food would be provided, and if the captain would take more than 100 passengers, they were obliged to have a medical doctor and the necessary medical equipment in the ship. Trains became also popular in the last periods of Ottoman Empire, and they would go 30 kilometers per hour. They would start from Istanbul Haydarpaşa, they would go to Konya, and after 5 days they would arrive to Aleppo, and from Aleppo to Damascus, and from Damascus to Medina, and then therefore they would go to Mecca by land. The routes and the timing of the trains would be arranged, and the timing would be specifically arranged in accordance with the prayer time. And there was a specific section for women passengers as well. In 1842, 150,000 pilgrims were registered, and in 1873 there were more than 300,000 pilgrims, and there were more than 300,000 in the next years as well. The performance of Hajj, all pilgrim candidates coming from all over the world, they would dress ihram, and in these miqat locations there would be a water well, and they would do their tawafs and their sighs, and they would get rid of their ihrams later on, and they would go to Arafat, and they would establish their tents in front of the Mount Arafat. They would pray in Masjid Ibrahim. There are 13 pools in Arafat for pilgrims. Based on their regions, they are differentiated into groups. Lights would be put to guide the pilgrims to find their ways. Pilgrims who stay in Arafat, they cook their meal themselves. There is a bazaar, there is a market also established for them to buy their food. There are the street sellers as well who sell water, sweets, and milk, etc. And then there is a vakfe time at the 9th day during noon prayer, and people read hutbahs and pray. Last 2 minutes. Please, could you wrap up, madam? Then, especially for guidance services, as the guidance services, we have the guidance services provided during Hajj, and they are covering all specific needs. During that time, there are 6,000 workshops and necessary shops are available to cover the needs. In the last periods of Mecca, there was a branch of an Ottoman bank, and it was put into service of Ottoman pilgrims. Many services were provided for masjids and for mosques, and water needs were covered. In Medina,
şehre baktığımız zaman Mescid-i Nebevi'ye
Mescid-i Nebevi
elektrik sistemi
was
döşenmiş ve
provided with an
yanında
electricity
mescid önünde
system,
elektrikle
and it was
aydınlatılmıştır.
illuminated with electricity. We have the information in the archives and travel journeys.
Hizmetler var. Yine ben en önemli noktalardan bir tanesi sağlık hizmetleri.
Healthcare services.
Mekke'den yani
From
İstanbul'dan çıkan hacı kafilesine
the pilgrimage group who sets off from Istanbul, there would be a female doctor and a male doctor. In 1806, ophthalmologists and a female doctor would be assigned to accompany the group in the pilgrimage journey. Indeed, Ottoman Empire provided great services, and the services provided now are actually a continuation of the services provided by the Ottoman Empire, and we are actually continuing the good legacy started by Ottoman Empire. You are over your time, madam. Ottoman Empire, Mescid-i Haram, Mina, and Muzdalifa. In order to cover the needs of the population, they have established the necessary systems. Hygiene, cleaning, shopping, services were provided. And in order not to cause any problems, the government also established a very good communication network, and there was always financial support provided to this region. And as it is a crowded area, in order not to have any problems, a lot of healthcare and quarantine services provided, especially for Mecca and Medina, were the beneficiaries of these services. Thank you very much, madam. Thank you very much.